it allows you to be open to learning something. Because if you think you know everything, then you can't learn new ways.
Welcome to the World Beyond Resilience podcast.
We have today this wonderful guest, Josianne Gauthier, who's joined us from Brussels. She's originally from Montreal, Quebec. Josianne trained as a lawyer in human rights and focused primarily on children's rights, and has real interest in social justice, environmental rights activism, is passionate about intergenerational awareness and mutual responsibility, and currently is the Secretary General of CIDSE, which is the International Family of Catholic Social Justice Organizations. Pleased to have you on our World Beyond Resilience podcast. I hope that we can cover lots of different things about you, your personal views on resilience, and also what that means for you in your particular line of work and also in your faith. Is there anything I've missed, Josianne, that you'd like to say about yourself before we get going?
No, I think it's fine. The rest will probably come out.
Okay. Well, Angela and I usually take turns asking some questions, and Angela is always right off the bat with the first one. So why don't you go ahead, Angela?
Well, we can't help ourselves, Josianne. We really do want to know. Everyone has a resilience story. And we never actually name the word resilience. It's a relatively recent word that people are using, but we still have a resilience story. So what's yours?
I don't know if I have just one, but I think that there have been a few opportunities, a few times in my life when everything seemed to hit at the same time. Because I think when it's just one challenge at a time, you kind of manage it and you don't really pay that much attention to it. You always seem to have enough stored energy to deal with one challenge at a time. But when it just seems like there's a perfect storm and there's a lot of elements coming in at once, then you're pulling on all your resources to face that challenge or that multi-crisis kind of challenge that you're facing. And so there have been a few moments in my life where the personal and the professional seem to both come in at me at the same time. There's some really strong personal stories of grief where I faced something in my family or in my private life at the same time as a huge challenge in my work life. And there was a moment many years ago during the tsunami in South Asia and Southeast Asia, where I was at the same time going through a very personal, difficult loss, and I was facing this massive global tragedy, and I was responsible for humanitarian projects. So I actually had to go to the field and be with communities that had lost lives and who had lost social fabric, lost hope. And they were destitute. I mean, they had not much to go with. And I'm sitting there, a rather young and inexperienced person, with my little broken heart and trying to put that all together, And I think that was a very, very difficult moment of growth. And when I came back, I focused on healing me because I realized I wasn't much use being so much in pain. And I know that after that story, my outlook on things really shifted. So I knew that had been a moment where something had happened inside me and I had grown a little bit different.
I noticed you call it growth. It was a growth moment, but there's real the pain, your pain and global pain is really present at the same time.
Yes, there was a lot of pain. And I think that before anything new can come, there's often quite a bit of loss and grieving that has to happen. And you do have to say goodbye to certain things before you can let something new emerge. And there was personal pain. There was shame because there's a moment where you just don't think that you're good enough. You've made so many mistakes, and you lacked maturity, or you lacked foresight, or you lacked understanding of what was happening to you. You feel very naive, and you blame yourself. And you also are faced with this, not just global pain, but what was happening in the tsunami, in that environment, um, was so much bigger than me, and I felt so small, and I felt so helpless, and I couldn't be of any use to anybody, and that was something very hard for me, because I think I had sort of defined myself as somebody who was helpful, and in that moment, I felt very helpless.
If this is your resilience story, Josianne, what's the metaphor for resilience that you would give to that, or the song that you would call it?
Um, there was some letting go, and there was some forgiveness. There was allowing the pain to happen and to be felt fully, and the trust, and maybe that's where my faith comes in, the trust that I had either personally the strength, or that I would find it within, around me, or with others, or through the love of others, to get past that, to go beyond that painful moment, and that there was a next day. There was something else that could happen after that. So things start again. There are seasons. There are things that start over again. So after a difficult passage, there's renewal. So I don't know if the song would work with that. Of course, when I say it like that, it sounds like something from the '60s, but from Woodstock. But my favorite song, and the song that always inspires me to start and gives me courage, and I've shared this with you, Angela, before, I'm sure, is "A Blackbird" by the Beatles, and it's really about the courage in adversity, the courage when everything seems really difficult, but knowing that there's something that takes you higher.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Can I go into this a little bit? I'm just so curious, because we've gone from a story about huge pain at a personal and a bigger level, and a feeling of helplessness, and shame, and all those things. So all these negative emotions, to the beyond resilience, which is the kind of the growth and the rebirth and the courage. And what's that
The acceptance.
process in between? Because
Mhm.
there's in a way, you don't hear a lot about resilience. You just hear about the beyond resilience. You've gone past that. So I'm just curious, what gave you the resilience mindset? What was that different? How is that different from the beyond resilience? What would you say?
Well, for one, humility is involved. I mean, in my case, there was humility. There was accepting that difficult things happen to everybody, to different measures, to different degrees. All of humanity faces at some point or another some kind of difficulty. And it wasn't to compare my pain with the global pain in any way, but it was just to say that they coexisted, that there are different levels of pain that are happening at individual and collective levels. And I think that allowing for that to happen, allowing and accepting that there's pain and that there's grieving that has to happen, allows you to let go of it a bit.
Mm.
And in my case, it was about not feeling alone. It was really, really important that I was loved, and that I felt love, and that I felt that I still had capacity to love. And so I could, in my humility, because you do have to accept, that you have to face your errors, and you have to face your difficulties, and you have to accept help, and you have to accept other people to say it's okay. It's okay. Today is not a good day, but there'll be others. So yeah, the ego gets in the way a lot of the healing, I find, because you always think that you're so strong and you can always get through anything, and this wouldn't happen to me. But it does. It always does, in some way or another. And so getting through it was about the humility. It was about accepting the help. It was accepting the love of others, forgiving yourself, and then allowing yourself to start over in a very fragile state, but renewed.
Mm. I'm really struck by the softness in the way you were speaking about this, Josiane. And we often hear about resilience as being this capacity to endure, and there's a certain there's a brittle force to it. I say brittle because it's got like a crustiness, like you can sort of tap on a crust and it crumbles. But it's got that I have to endure, and I'm not hearing any of that in what you're saying. You keep saying these words like it's so. There's no less power in it, but there's the softness and that of the acceptance. I keep hearing you say the word acceptance. What's the importance of acceptance? What's it about?
I mean, I think it allows you to be open to learning something, because if you think you know everything, then you can't learn new ways. So accepting is also accepting, I don't know how to face this situation. I don't know what happened. I don't understand it right now. And if you accept that this happened to me, um, maybe I could have done things differently, but maybe it would have happened differently as well. You can learn from that situation. You're open to receiving a new opportunity, a new learning, a new relationship. It makes you available to what the universe has to offer you.
And how did that affect, because you were dealing with personal heartbreak, and I think we all
Yeah.
know what that feels like. It's just devastating. And
Mm.
I'm just imagining you then with this huge catastrophe, of which I had a couple of friends who were actually in that tsunami as well. You might have been helping to get them home to France. But all of that to say, you've got your own heartbreak and then global heartbreak. How did that openness that you're speaking about and that humility help you be actually in the process of working with all of these people and their own heartbreak and their own difficulty?
Yeah, I think it made me less afraid of just living the emotions with them. I think we're very often afraid of other people's emotions because we're afraid it will trigger something in us that we won't know what to do with. But there was also permission to just be sad with them and not try to fix it, because there's really nothing I could do except be with them. And so they were with me too, right? Yeah.
You can see Carolyn listening really intently. It's like other people listening can't see Carolyn listening, but we can read that. Yeah.
I was just, I would say, because I was just in Southeast Asia now, and having seen the little markers of where the tsunami hit, and all around, like I was in several countries, and it was very, very prominent everywhere. But talking about rebirth and regrowth, the ability of those places to have bounced back in such a short amount of time is just so impressive too. So that recovering from a devastating situation is, knowing that that's coming. You don't know that at that point, right, when you're dealing with it, and it's just so hard to imagine, isn't it? So, yeah.
I don't think you can overcome it if you're thinking about it happening. I think the only way is through. I think the only way is when you have no idea it's coming, because otherwise you just live in anxiety all the time.
Which is what a lot of
We
people are
can't
right
know.
now, right?
Yeah, true.
A lot of people around the world are living in anxiety, and I think that's part of what we're getting to with this beyond resilience conversation. And I'm hearing from all of the wisdom that you're saying. This, Carolyn, you just said bounce back, and you too, like overcoming and bouncing back, and that's very much the resilience model that we've been taught, right? I have to overcome, I have to bounce back, and I'm hearing you talk about openness and acceptance, and what keeps coming to mind is restoration. I think you said, Carolyn, was that right? And then or you said maybe Josiane, and then regeneration, something that's regenerative rather than reactive and just bouncing back.
And you're so different anyways after you've been through the experience. You can't undo it.
Yeah. Again, that definition of resilience that we have is about like taking the same shape. And Nong, the people who can see this on the web will be able to see your face, but it's like, it doesn't make sense, does it? The idea of you don't go back to who you were before. What happens afterwards? You were talking about growth.
Yes. Well, there's like these pathways that create themselves inside you, in your heart, in your head, that you have been strong enough to go through pain. So it chips a little bit away at your fear, because you've known how to navigate something that you didn't know how to navigate before. And it doesn't make it less painful, but it does make it less scary. And it can give you a kind of confidence once you've healed, that you have built a sort of a protective coat of skin that healed over the wound.
Mm-hmm.
So you know that happens. You know that you heal. You've seen the evidence of it, right? The other thing is you're just a lot smarter. I mean, you've learned something, about yourself, about life. You've grown up. There's maturity, of course, and that gives you perspective as well. In other situations, you don't look at things the same way. You don't look at your well, in my case, I can't say for everybody, but in my case, my drama meter changed.
Yeah.
Things are put in a bigger sphere of how they, not so much how they compare, but how they fit into your life and what you go to. You also know what you don't want to do anymore. You've learned from a bad experience. You're just like, well, I'm not doing that again. Not voluntarily anyway. I mean, it might happen to me by accident, but certain situations I'm not going to run after them. This is not for me. This doesn't make me happy. So there was some great learning from that. And then I made some really much better choices after just that experience, both professionally and personally. So there was a lot of positive loop that happened from the experience.
So all that growth through pain, all of the new discernment that comes through like young shoots sort of thing. I almost get a vision of a young forest, something like that, and its growth.
You mentioned as well that there was an element of faith coming in there too. What would you say was that element, or is that element for you?
Yeah, well, the first thing is that it's not all about you. When you have faith, you are part of something much bigger. You're part of a family that's broader than your personal life. You're connected to all other life. You're connected to other people. You're connected to living beings. So the choices you make and are not just your own. You also feel responsible for others, and you feel the responsibility that others have for you. So there's an element there that really helps you feel in a community, whether human or beyond. When you have with my faith, anyways, that's how I feel it. Also, we are also taught in my faith. So I'm Catholic, but I have a broader Christian learning. I'm very interested in ecumenical resources and interfaith inspirations. And I've also learned, and this helped me, that good things happen also after storms. That sometimes there are moments where we have to empty out and we have to go through almost a detox of our life to start again, to start fresh and clean again. And so whether it's, rituals of purification or rituals of even just birthing, where there's an element of a small death before there's a birth again, are things that I had in me, that I had as a guide, as a reference to catch me. So I didn't feel like I felt that even a small death could be followed by life.
How do you cultivate those things, Josianne? It's so beautiful to hear you say that. And what about for other people listening? What advice would you give them about cultivating these things that you have?
Well, I have different practices.
Mm-hmm.
I I read, of course. I try to read as much um, spiritual literature, not just of my own denomination, of my own little family, but I try to learn from other religions as well and other faiths and find what's universal in the messages of hope and love. Um, I try to stay as much in community and in contact with other people as possible. So to practice this connectivity with others on a daily basis in small, small ways, but just in reaching out to people and accepting when I'm being reached out to. So that's a putting into practice the ideas so that your body actually practices it,
Mm-hmm.
not just your head. I spend as much time as I possibly can with other living beings, plants, trees, bugs, just try to be outside, so that I don't get the illusion that it's about me,
Mm-hmm.
that I am part of something much bigger. And so I try to remind myself of this as much as possible. And it does me incredible good. As soon as I feel constricted, I go outside and I feel well again. Um, and I write, I journal a lot, because a lot of the difficult things that we live through are 80% in our own heads. That's how I feel anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And getting them out on paper allows for space,
Mm-hmm.
for good thoughts and good ideas to come in, because otherwise we're crowding the space, with our own negativity.
You, I love how clear you are. Like, and this is the way it is, and how important that is. And I just want to re-stipulate that you're actually leading an organization, and it's easy for all of us to say, "Oh, I don't have time." And you have, I know, 3 teenage children, and one's not even quite a teen yet, I think, or she might have just become one. Tweens and teens, and you're running an organization, which is a whole network as well. So you've got stakeholders outside your organization as well that you're dealing with. And so I wanted to put that back in the space, for not to guilt anybody, but just as an example that it is possible. And it sounds like that's something that's really important for you in cultivating what's beyond resilience, this regeneration, this life, this growth.
Yeah, what you make space for creates space for itself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm reading Gathering Moss, by Robin Wall Kimmerer, and she's just got this sentence where she's like, "Life attracts life,"
Mm-hmm.
and that's just been sitting with me for about 48 hours. Life attracts life. Put life out there, life sticks to it and grows. Um, yeah, time is a difficult issue for people, right? But the beauty of connecting with people is you can do it while you're working. You can do it while you're eating dinner. You can do it while you're walking in the park. You can walk in the park to work. I mean, I try to combine things. I don't have separate spaces for all these things. I try to be efficient, because obviously I don't have oodles of time. But the journaling is essential to me. At least 15 minutes a day. I mean, that's not too much. I can do that. We can waste a lot of time in a day, but I need those 15 minutes.
Can I ask, because I think it's amazing that you do manage to weave all this in, but I think more than anything else, like you've gone through your own challenges, in leading the organizations that you have been involved with, and now, what makes that, what do you think makes a difference in the way you're approaching then resilience or beyond resilience with your own team and your own organization? What do you think you do differently, or you've learned over the years, that help you
Hmm.
guide people through this, because especially now, as we all know, a lot of the organizations that your organization, other organizations are dealing with quite big crises. So
Yeah.
what is it
Yeah, there's a lot of
that you
pressure.
can do?
Oh. So I think there's always this delicate dance between a certain humility. There's always a new situation that's facing us that we can learn from, and we don't always have the answers, and that has to be okay. So that has to be sort of the ground rule. It's okay if we don't know the answer to this. But there also has to be, I struggle with, like a lot of people and a lot of women perhaps, with my own confidence. And so there also has to be a balance with knowing what you know. You have a certain amount of experience. You've already gone through a lot. Let's recap. And so sometimes with people, you're just like, wait, we've done certain things before. Maybe there's something from that, basket of experiences that we can draw from. So yes, we're open and conscious that we don't have all the answers and that we may need to learn a new skill right now. But perhaps we have something in our tool belt or in our bag that can help us to take one step further. So it's really trying to both recognize the skills and the experience and the expertise that people do have, and keep them open-minded about learning something new and facing a situation together. What helps is recognizing that maybe not, of course, not every person has all the skills and all the expertise and all the experience to face a situation, a challenge like we're in right now, but maybe together with the different combinations, we have something that might work. We have something we can start with, which gives us collective input and gives us collective confidence to take a step forward because we have each other. Trust in the team is so important. And trust means being allowed to show up with your weaknesses as well, is allowed to show that I don't know how to do this and I'm afraid. And so people are stressed right now. People are tense. And we have to keep recognizing it. We can't just say, we're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. It's not fine. It's difficult. But that doesn't mean we can't do it.
It's so funny because what you've said about your organization completely mirrors what you said about the situation in 2005, 2004, 2005. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's something around then, which is,
Long
the need of acceptance,
Mm-hmm.
right? And a certain humility, but also the connection, and also recognizing that it's fragile. What you're trying to build is fragile, and it requires, people kind of pulling together in different ways, or pulling people together. If you're an individual, pulling on other people and giving to other people, and that creates maybe a beyond resilience kind of mindset, right? Is what we're trying to think.
Totally. And adding to what you said, Carolyn, it's really interesting to hear this capacity to hold multitudes, to hold seeming paradoxes or polarities. There's the being with, it's so present in you, Josianne, though. Actually, it's okay not to know, and it's also okay to know. So I can have my wisdom and I can also not know something, and not make those mutually exclusive is in that personal tragedy and that personal tragic moment, and with all of the onslaught of the different challenges that are always part of life, that are particularly these crises that are happening at the moment in the world that your organization's facing and many organizations are facing. And you look like you might have wanted to add something,
I
Josianne,
wanted
so
to
I've
add something
stopped.
because, yeah, sorry. No, it just made me think that so right now I work more in advocacy work and social justice, but for a while there, during the tsunami years, I was the emergency relief officer. So I was working in humanitarian crises. And we used to always assess, and it's very developmenty talk, but we used to always assess that the communities that were the most resilient, quote unquote, were those that had strong social fabric, those who stayed together, who had each other. So it wasn't about money. It wasn't about expertise. It wasn't about specifically where they were, or how bad they had been hit by the crisis. It was how they behaved together. And that just reminded me of that.
I was going to kind of build on that, but do you want to, before I build on it?
Go, build. This is all about building. I'll come back later on to, like, it's interesting, those that were the most resilient, we can come back. You build first. We've got lots of time.
Okay, because my thought was just on that social fabric, and I think it's so important nowadays to think. A lot of people feel like the social fabric is fraying, right? And that's part of the reason why we are where we are today. And given that your, advocacy is a big part of what you do, what do you see as some of the things that you're doing, or people around you that are doing to kind of help with that social fabric and building a kind of different kind of framework for thinking about the problems of the world?
We're noticing that the story we tell ourselves, or the narrative, is critical. We have to believe in the good, and we have to talk about it as a real thing. It's not just a wish, it actually exists. There are good people doing good things for the right reasons, and there are many. And they're not a minority. They are most people. And I think that story we constantly have to tell. We've been telling it through our work when it comes to alternatives for energy transition, or living a simpler life, or sufficiency, or a non-extractivist agenda. That's what we're always saying, is most people don't actually want this or benefit from it. And so just telling that story is really, really important. But on a personal level, I'm thinking about two things. I'm feeling called on two levels. One is to actually live as much with a positive message of love and compassion and solidarity as possible, and to enact it and to implement it all the time as much as I can, just because life attracts life, just in the sense that I want it to be what surrounds me, and I want it to offer to somebody else the possibility to do the same, to and to move that on. And the other thing that I'm thinking that I need to do more is just, in whatever way I can, build community, whether it's the neighbors on my street, whether it's in my church, whether it's in my team. Just build and nourish community, make people feel that they're not alone, that we have each other, and that social fabric, sort of just at the micro level, just keep reproducing that pattern as much as possible.
Beautiful. Thank you. I keep coming back to that life attracts life. And again, you've said so many times as well today, Josianne, about love. And so this is a bit of a leading question because I've started with what you've already said, but you might come up with something else as well. You were saying before that social fabric is what makes communities and organizations, the world, more resilient. And Carolyn and I here, we want to get away from the word resilient because it's so much about literally always defining ourselves by the obstacle.
Mm-hmm.
And obstacles, what I'm hearing you say, if I've got it right, is that life is life and life attracts life, and there are going to be obstacles. So you have that real beyond resilience mindset, or beyond resilience way of being. And this word sort of keeps popping up for us everywhere, like helps us be resilient. Well, what even is that? Is that just bouncing back against the obstacle, or is it new growth? And so my question, that was a long way of going around it, was if there was a quality that was beyond resilient, that really helped the world be beyond resilient and not just resilient, what would that quality be?
Light. I mean, light always finds a way. And it feels like and when you're imagining also neural pathways being produced, you just see like electricity, light moving. And for me, that's the beyond. It's not tightening the knot so that it's safe. It's finding the way forward and out through the darkness towards the light. And that's the goal.
It's almost.
Do you want to say a little bit more then about being that light?
Carolyn
might have a
I
better
was going to
question.
say it sounds like it's not toward a light. It's like you're generating the light, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we need to do that too. Yeah, we generate light so that, there's more of it. And it may not be a specific direction, you're right, but it's out of a state of just being safe or just being closed in. And it's about the openness and the breathing and being connected to each other. Because I think when you're in a tight place, it's really difficult for you to reach out to other people. And therefore, you become self-referential. Your whole life becomes self-referential. But that, to me, is not the meaning of life. And the meaning is to reach out and to learn and to grow and to be with others. So challenges are opportunities for you to discover. Of course, make mistakes. Of course, get hurt. But then move beyond that. Maybe even with some of the people that you run into a difficulty with, you might take them along with you. Something might shift. Not always. Some people you have to say, okay, we're not going to continue this road together. But, and that has to be okay as well. But yeah, the light to me is just this energy that you can create and that you can take forward and take out of whatever not or dark place that you're stuck in.
What if you're not even stuck in a dark place? What's the role of light then?
Well, make your space not dark. I mean, if you're not stuck and you have access to that light, then you share it. You have a responsibility to share it with everybody. Pass it on. I mean, you've got more than enough for yourself, then you're going to make more light, right? I mean, that's the whole point. It's the contagion of it is what counts.
There's so much generosity in our conversation, Josianne. There's so much generosity in what you're sharing. In fact, the if you've got it, share it. If you've got more than you need, share it. And if you don't have enough, then share everybody else's. There's so much sharing and generosity, so much reciprocity.
I think that's one thing is asking also. I think we're not very well in Western societies. We're really not very good at asking. We have such a narrative of, and I'm speaking especially as a North American, and I've learned this even in Europe. Just you don't have to be so tough, and you don't have to manage everything on your own, and you don't have to be so autonomous. I mean, it's just considered this such a holy thing to be autonomous and independent and self-reliant. And it's the biggest joke.
Say a bit more about that. What's the cost of that? And what's the joke or the cost?
On so much. You miss out on so much. And there's so many, because the whole point is relationships to me. The whole point of everything we do is relationships. And by being self-sufficient and self-reliant, you tell yourself this story that you don't need anybody. And it's just you're missing so many opportunities for delight, for laughter, for people to care for you, and lighten the load. We're all supposed to do this together. And so I've just learned a lot about that, that I really appreciate, and it makes life so much simpler. Oh my goodness, it's so much work to keep everything up by yourself. It's so much easier to allow others to help you and to be mutually with that reciprocity, to not have all of the responsibility on me, but to know that there are lots of us and we can share this, and I can give you some and you can give me some, and what if we put it all together? What does that do? So the potential of that is exponential.
Can I come in there? Because one of the things that I didn't mention right at the beginning, introducing you, and the very first thing you said about yourself when I was trying to get a good bio together for you, was I'm a mother. So and it comes really back to this. What I was thinking originally. Well, what does it mean, to have this kind of different mindset as a mother. But then coming back to what you've just said, we all hear the narrative, right, of the mother doing everything and feeling responsible of holding up the ship and doing that. So how does this relate to you yourself as a mother, right?
Oh, the question.
We'll see what my kids say. Well, I mean, yeah, I think that I want them to see vulnerability in me as not a frightening or destabilizing thing, but as reassuring thing that I'm human. So I allow them to see me at times as vulnerable and needing help. And I also want them to feel they can help. I want them to know that they have power, they have skills that I need from them. And we're trying as they're growing and where they require me less to survive. Um, we're trying to share responsibilities more in the house, and it's not it is house chores, of course, partially, but it's also mutual responsibility for each other that we're trying to instill as a family. And that means you come to dinner because I want you at the same meal as me. I want us to talk. I want us to have opportunities to say things to each other, beat sides, pick up your laundry, you know. So trying to create human relations with your own kids, you know, which is more challenging than you would think because you have this much energy left at the end of the day. You have very little, and you've spent all day trying to make sure everybody's happy at work, or not really, but anyways, trying to make sure they're healthy. you you get home and you need to do it again. And you really do need to do it again because guess what? These are the people that will hold you when everything else falls apart. And if you don't invest in these people, um, and they don't know what it is to be able to help you and to be able to to be of use to you, then they're missing out as well. And one of the biggest gifts I ever had was being able to take care of my mother when she was dying. It was short, but I had the opportunity to do it, and I thanked her for it, for letting me do that. It's a gift.
And interesting that you say that too. I mean, it's a really powerful thing to say, isn't it? But like mothers are, my mother, I shouldn't expect, but my mother was terrible about wanting to do everything herself. And that when, as you age, you have less and less ability to take care of yourself, right? And for people feel very shamed about that as they get older, right? And yet, as you said, the gift is to the person caring, right? Because you are able to spend time with them and show them the love and respect that maybe you didn't get a chance to do because they didn't let you when you were younger, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for them to recognize your strengths and your skills.
Yeah.
Because you're still that child that needs to be recognized as being able.
The way of letting yourself be loved again, isn't it? And I know that it must be our age as well, or our generation. Those beautifully strong mothers, the women that came before us and our grandmothers, and who, you know, felt like they had to be so strong, and the sadness that comes with feeling like you're a burden if you can't do it all by yourself, and thinking that you should. And in fact, that's all part of that old resilience conversation as well. I'm resilient because I can survive alone. It's like, what? We're not meant to survive alone. There's so much love and beauty and connection. I can feel really emotional with everything, you know, you're sharing, and how Carolyn's building on that. And like there's some sadness and grief, you know, and a lot of love that goes to the generations before with who they were and what they did, and also recognizing that a lot of the great gains that were made in society were because they did band together.
Yeah.
And you know, really build on each other's strengths as well. But coming back to you, I love that, you know, just being able to be strong in reciprocity, be well, life attracts life, actually, doesn't it? Attracting the life back. It's beautiful. So I was just wondering as well, Josianne, because you were speaking with the, you know, with the meal times with your kids, and And I always feel like I'm overriding a really soft moment as well with you being able to look after your mum. So there's part of me that doesn't want to go any further in the conversation and just leave it there.
That's fine.
But there's another part that is, again, just what would you say to other women out there, other women who are maybe younger women who are thinking about stepping into leadership, younger women who maybe also, whether they are or they're not thinking about stepping into leadership, but like are wondering, how do I build this? How do I step into a beyond resilient world? What advice would you give them?
Find some older sisters who are generous with their wisdom and their experience, who are not afraid to tell you about challenges they've faced. Listen. They're not telling you what to do. They're sharing something that can grow inside you and help you face new situations. Um, I think that a lot of women going into leadership positions are very worried about their performance. They want to get it right. They want to prove that they deserve it. And so there's already a preconceived notion that they don't deserve it, that they have to step up to. So it's not a natural thing that they're getting the leadership position. They have to fight for it. So they put themselves in fight mode. I can do this, and I have to prove to everybody that I can take on more than anybody else. And I get it. I think I would ask them to have fun, have more fun. There's so much fun in the first years of new jobs, new leadership positions. The curiosity, the excitement. And yeah, ask for support. Ask for support from people. Um, Listen to your colleagues who are older than you, but hold your ground. You're there for a reason. Somebody thought you had what it took, so hold on to that. It should be you that believes it, but sometimes you miss that. You don't hear that voice so strongly. But other people also believed in you and gave you that opportunity and are supporting you. Ask them for support. People who recommended you for the position, they believe in you. So find out who your champions are and hold on to them.
So would you say that as well to women who've just stepped into new Secretary General positions or CEO positions as well? Have more fun, find your older sisters. Yeah.
I would. I think we overthink and over worry so much. I
Otherwise, where's the light?
personally,
Yeah.
yes, yes. I worry personally so much about not being taken seriously enough. You know what I mean? Like, no, I'm a serious person. I know what I'm talking about. And I realize that's not what it's about. You know, I think when you believe fully in what you're doing, you get taken seriously. And that should be enough. And you can do that joyfully. You don't have to be sour about it or miserable or overworked to show your passion. And I think when you're enjoying yourself and having fun, you know that the work is much easier.
Wow.
And the others come along with you as well.
I'm so touched by this whole conversation. It's been so wide ranging, and we've had so many really insightful things that you've said from Josianne that we've learned from. Is there anything that we've missed as we come to the end that you wished you had a chance to say, or there's something in here that some gem that you have inside you that needs to come out amongst all the others?
No, as I came into this completely unprepared, I didn't have any preconceived ideas of what needed to be said. So I just let you carry me right through the conversation.
I feel like you carried, it's not that you didn't carry yourself alone, because I'm really getting the sense of reciprocity, but this is it. You came in with all of your wisdom and all of the years of experience and all of your joy and all of your light, and their life attracted life. So
Thank
beautiful.
you.
Thank you, Josianne.
Thank you,
Thank you both.
Josianne. If if people want to learn more about what you do or about your life and your work, is there anywhere you'd point them to?
Well, they could go to the website of our organization if they want to learn about CIDSE. So it's www.cidse.org. But if they want to learn about what I care about more deeply on a personal level, they could go look up Laudato Si, which is an encyclical letter written by Pope Francis on integral ecology. And there's a lot of wisdom in that document. So it's a letter to the world. It's a love letter to the world about caring for our common home. And so that would give you insight into me.
Thank you. We'll take that and we'll write it and put it in the links that go with this. That's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you,
Anything
Rose.
else?
Enough.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for joining us today,
Thank you
Josianne.
both.
Wonderful.
It's been bright and full of light. So to all of you wonderful listeners out there, I think that you can get a lot from this conversation and let yourself be inspired by the light and the love and the compassion, and you'll find in here so many I guess we always say tips and tricks, but it's not that at all. They're like these beautiful, they're not rules for life either, but you've got this guiding light inside you, Josianne, that I think all of you listening in will be able to get a lot from.
Thank you.
Hi, Carolyn.
Hi, Angela. Wasn't it great listening to Josianne's story again? I really loved it.
No, incredible. It was a really moving conversation. There were some real gold nuggets in there.
Yeah, some real wisdom. She seems to have wisdom in her core, doesn't she?
Yeah, it flows in the blood in her veins. Totally.
What resonated with you in particular?
So much, but I know we're going to keep it to just 2 or 3 points so that our listeners can really get those nuggets. You know, when Josianne spoke about her story of not being resilient, and she told us about the tsunami, how she was faced with so much personal grief during such a global tragedy. So making the distinction of the personal within the global and how important that is, and how she had to become vulnerable and really go through a grieving and forgiveness process. And forgiveness is a big part, actually, of a beyond resilient framework, accepting where you are and allowing yourself to feel and being able to accept reality, be able to be with the gritty realness of it and not try and hide away and not try and be too tough. What about you?
Yeah, I totally agree with that point. And what I loved about it is she came to the realization that she didn't have to have all the answers. She could just sit with that. And that was a point for her to start growing again once she'd gone through that grief and that forgiveness and that understanding that it was okay. And subsequently realizing that paradox of not knowing necessarily what to do in the moment, that was okay, and knowing paradoxically that she would come out the other end just fine in most situations because she could create forward.
It's sort of the stuff of dreams, isn't it? There's all these things in there that you feel like can't be true at once, and yet they are. And coming back to the acceptance, the way you just explained it, this is really key for people to pick up. Acceptance, again, doesn't mean resigning yourself to a situation as, oh, that's the way it is. It's very much about just taking stock and saying, right, this is what's happening, like feeling your feet on the ground, and even if the ground's shaking. And there's a saying that's called, you can't leave a place you've never been. And so really being in that position and holding everything that goes with it, all the feelings, accepting that there are feelings that go with this. I loved that too, that's what allowed her to move forward, because you can't leave a place you've never been. And then coming back around to what you just said, so many people think leadership is about having all the answers, right? And I know you've been in that leadership position as well. And it's an unrealistic expectation to have at the best of times. It's also missing out on so much of the collective genius and recognizing that the solution is held within the problem and the process, not within one person.
Yeah, I totally agree. She had this great quote in there I had to pull out. She said, there's this holy thing to be autonomous and independent, particularly, she said, as a North American, right? And self-reliant. And she said, it's the biggest joke. You miss the biggest point about relationships, the fact that being interconnected and solving things together and you're greater as part of a whole is just fantastic to hear from her.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, seriously, when we really think about it, it's a very egoic idea to think that you should have all the answers for everything and you should know, especially for unprecedented situations, things that haven't happened there before. And even if they have happened elsewhere, when you're in the moment, there are so many new factors. So again, like you said, for North Americans, but Australians are the same, and it's the same everywhere. We sort of grow up with that you should be tough and you should know. And there is no should knowing. Again, it misses out on the richness of the situation and the many talents of everybody else, and really belonging to a community. It's like really being part of something together. And it is together. Actually, it's Brian Eno, I think, who spoke of genius, which was collective genius, and that the next Buddha would be our community. So,
wow.
In the form of a community. And I think that really speaks to this. If we could just let go of having to be tough, so that's one thing. Well, that very much my upbringing, just like grit your teeth, the very English, like keep calm and carry on. And that doesn't speak to just being calm. It speaks to, gritting your teeth and just like keep going forward no matter what's going on. Like holding everything on your shoulders and developing a thick skin, where hearing in Josianne the beauty, in fact, of recognizing that we're vulnerable and the strength that comes from a collective conversation about, how to solve something much bigger than you.
Yeah. And it's so true. And it brings me to another point she pointed out when I tested her on this, social fabric is fraying. And to your point there, it's partly because we are so focused on the individual. Mm. And she was talking about all the great things that she sees around her, people doing great things in communities and generating the light for the world. And that coming from yourself rather than trying to find it somewhere else, how you generate that, how you bring that light out. And my experience in working with you, Angela, is very much that, like understanding that you have that power to do that, to bring light into a room, to bring positive energy into a room. And it's actually really easy once you practice it, but we're all so tightly bound that so you hide your light under this bushel and you forget that that's what's actually really, really needed when you're in a community to bring that light.
Yeah, that's so lovely the way you've said that. Thank you for that compliment. But I think it's a really important point that you've brought up, that there's a fine line between the individual having to know everything and the personal quality that you bring to a situation, the attributes, the light, the generosity, your own genius, and highlighting our interdependence, that we're really nothing without each other. And yet we do bring something important. And if we weave back around to the beginning of our conversation, they're both true. The personalness that you bring, the light that you bring is essential, but having all of the weight of having to have all the answers by yourself is outdated and causes more pain, and, if I'm going to use the productivity word, lowers productivity more than what we could imagine, right? And talking of a tsunami, I don't think productivity is the word to have, but it negatively impacts the impact we can have, if that's a thing.
It lowers our impact. That's right.
Yeah, lowers the impact. Exactly. Yeah.
There you go.
So I think they're really important points to bring out. Is there anything we've forgotten?
No, that was for me the real eye-opening parts of her
story, although everything was amazing. So I encourage everybody who wants to listen to it again if you want to hear it, but please take away those 3 points and, think about them yourselves. How can you bring light into a room? How can you reach out and be part of a community? And how can you accept what you know you can't control and move forward with what you can, with creativity and grace and light?
Oh, yeah. I'm not adding anything to that.
And that brings us to the end of another episode of the World Beyond Resilience podcast.
If anything you heard today sparked an aha moment or made you think differently about resilience, please tell us about it in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.
And please share it with everyone you know.
For more episodes exploring how we can thrive beyond just bouncing back, follow our show on your favorite platforms. So we absolutely love this topic, and we can see the possibility for this to create really powerful, vibrant, prosperous change in organizations and systems. So if this conversation interests you and you start to feel that spark as well, and you think it would be useful for yourself or within your organization, feel free to get in contact.
And of course, we have additional resources and deeper dives into all the topics we discuss on our website, which is worldbeyondresilience.com.
So until next time, remember, there's a whole world of possibilities beyond just being resilient. Take care. Give us a call.